When we read the Bible, we encounter people ministering with such power and boldness that we don't realize who these people were before their great deeds. Reading about this in Hebrews 11, we deduce that they were very bold for their time, facing great generals with their armies and being exceedingly strong. It says that they drew strength from weakness, strove in battle, were not cowards in the face of adversity, and obtained promises. Reading this, we deduce that they were born that way, but they weren't. In today's video, we will talk a little about Moses and the beginning of his divine calling. After fleeing Egypt, Moses became a shepherd of his father-in-law's flock. Beginning in Exodus chapter 3, it is written that, while leading the flock to Horeb, the mount of God, the angel of the Lord appears in a flame of fire in the midst of a bush. Despite being on fire, the bush was not consumed. Moses, as he approaches, hears the voice of God calling him to free the Hebrew people from Egyptian oppression. However, even in the face of this glorious divine manifestation, he presents 5 excuses to disqualify himself, trying to convince God that someone else should be called in his place. First excuse is inability or self-deprecation when he says, "Who am I, that I should go to Pharaoh and bring the children of Israel out of Egypt?" Moses' life had presented him with several controversies. He was born in a hovel but lived in a palace. He began as an heir to poverty but enjoyed unlimited wealth. He went from being the son of Pharaoh's daughter to a wandering fugitive, from a powerful Egyptian soldier to a shepherd in the desert. What was happening in Moses' life with so many ups and downs? He had studied all the arts and schools of Egypt to prepare him for Pharaoh's office and had ended up in the desert. Even the divine commission was unattainable for him. He didn't consider himself important enough to free approximately 3 million people captive in Egypt. He felt inadequate to carry out God's mission and not be someone of authority to do so. Note that Moses didn't ask God, "Why have you chosen me?" or "How will you help me?" Instead, he focused on his identity. Once God calls us, it's not our job to decide if we're qualified. Instead, we simply need to trust that God has what it takes to qualify us for the mission ahead, just as he told Moses, "Surely I will be with you." I believe many people listening to this message right now are waiting for God to tell them, "You are the woman," or "You are the man for such a time as this." However, they are constantly asking themselves, "Who am I?" Stop that right now. God has called you and equipped you to fulfill the task he has given you. Second excuse is ignorance when he says, "When the children of Israel come and say to them, 'The God of your fathers has sent me to you,' and they ask me, 'What is his name? What shall I tell them?'" Moses was full of doubts about the authority with which he would present himself before the people. He left there as a general with Egyptian authority, and merely mentioning his own name commanded respect and fear from everyone. Moses must have thought to himself, "Now, after 40 years in the desert, I will return there, and they will know that I have no authority whatsoever, and my own name will bring them no importance or respect because I fled and abandoned my upbringing." He was thinking only of his reputation and his Egyptian roots, despite knowing that he had been born a Hebrew. But God's answer is unique. "I am who I am." God was telling Moses that he was all he needed. All authority, reputation, power, and sovereignty are in God. It then says, "The God of Abraham, the God of Isaac, and the God of Jacob has sent me to you. This is my name forever, and this is my memorial to all generations." All the history and promises made centuries ago were still in place. All the affliction his people were going through was known before him. God was telling Moses that, although he was no longer powerful, he would be carrying with him the fulfillment of the promise to rescue all the people from Egypt and bring them to a land flowing with milk and honey. Fifth and last excuse is insubordination when he says, "O Lord, send by the hand of the one you will send." In his final attempt to deflect the divine mission, Moses essentially appeals to the Lord to send someone else. At this point, the Lord's anger flares against Moses and mentions Aaron, his own brother, to help him. If Aaron was more capable, why did God choose Moses? We cannot know God's mind, but we can understand that it is His undeserved favor. He could have chosen someone else, but God chooses us, and His Spirit works powerfully within us. Faced with God's answers, Moses fulfills his promise and becomes one of the greatest prophets. He leads the people out of Egypt and leads an entire nation through a desert for 40 years. They experience daily miracles, and their story is remembered from generation to generation. How many of us make similar excuses to God? The path of virtue is indeed difficult and requires discipline and obedience. Yet, the Lord promises to be with us. Matthew chapter 28, verse 20 says that He will be with us until the end of the age. 1 Peter chapter 5, verse 10 says, "The God of all grace, who called you to His eternal glory in Christ Jesus, after you have suffered for a little while, will Himself restore you, establish you, strengthen you, and set you on a firm foundation." Say yes to God and fulfill your calling. May Jesus bless your walk in faith.